My name is Lindsay Baggett, and I will be presenting on Dr. Willard Harley. Dr. Harley is a clinical psychologist and marriage counselor who has dedicated his life to saving failing marriages. He earned his PhD in psychology from the University of California at Santa Barbara in 1967. He is also a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Minnesota and has been since 1975. The first 10 years of Dr. Harley's career were focused on teaching college students at both the graduate and undergraduate levels. During this time, Harley was also a part-time marriage counselor but found little success in helping couples whose marriages were crumbling. He soon realized that he was not the only one in the world of counseling to be struggling with saving marriages. Harley was distraught over climbing rates of divorce and singleness in the United States and wanted to be able to do something about it. Dr. Harley decided that he would dedicate the next 2 years of his life to finding a new approach to saving marriages. It was clear to him that the current approaches were not working, and he was determined to find a new solution. Instead of searching for answers in books and articles, Dr. Harley took a new approach and looked to the couples whose marriages were in shambles and were considering divorce as their only option. To figure out how to save marriages, Harley listened to couples and the reasons they were giving for wanting to end their marriages. He soon realized the problem with so many of the marriage counseling approaches and why they were all failing. He learned that marriage counselors were so preoccupied with finding out why marriages were failing that they gave little attention to why and what made them actually work. With this new insight gained from countless hours of research, Dr. Harley began to attack emotional issues in marriage rather than rational ones. Dr. Harley's background in psychology gave him some advantages when it came to analyzing marriages and what made them work. He knew that learned associations trigger most of our emotional reactions. Basically, whenever something is presented continuously with a certain emotion, it will trigger that emotion all on its own. He realized he could apply the same principle to the feeling of love. His theory, therefore, was that love is nothing more than a learned association. Furthermore, if a spouse does everything he or she can to make the other spouse happy and avoids doing anything to make him or her unhappy, love in the marriage will ultimately be restored. The more Dr. Harley began putting his new theory into practice, the more he began to perfect it. He began helping couples identify what each spouse needed from the other person in their marriage. He became so successful in his method that he quit teaching and became a full-time marriage counselor. Due to the high volume of couples wanting his help, Harley finally came out with his now best-selling book, His Needs, Her Needs, explaining his theory. This book has now sold over 3 million copies and has been translated into 22 languages. Today, Dr. Harley continues to write, speak, and lead conferences throughout the United States and Canada. That was a little bit of background information on Dr. Harley, and now I will move on to his epistemology. After doing some research on Dr. Harley, it became clear to me that he finds his source of truth in people, and more specifically in his counselees. To find the answer to marriage counseling, Dr. Harley dedicated his time to asking couples what they needed to make their marriages work. He stopped counseling and decided to start listening to couples who were ready to give up on their marriages and settle for divorce. It wasn't until Harley spoke with countless couples that he finally perfected his method for marriage counseling. As for Dr. Harley's anthropology, he sees the person as a love bank. This concept that he created describes how people fall in and out of love with one another. This love bank keeps track of how each person is treated by their spouse. Everything the other spouse does either deposits or withdraws love units for their spouse's love bank. When the love bank reaches the romantic love threshold, the feeling of love is triggered. When the love bank is above the threshold, love will remain, but when the love bank falls below it, love will ultimately be lost. The human person is also made up of instincts and habits, as according to Dr. Harley. The difference between these two behavioral patterns is that a person is born with certain instincts, while habits are learned over a period of time. These are important because instincts and habits can either make deposits into the love bank or make withdrawals. Dr. Harley also says that there are two sides of a person's personality, the giver and the taker. The giver does everything in their power to make the other person happy, regardless of their own happiness, while the taker does everything in their power to make sure that they are happy, regardless of their spouse's happiness. Either way, someone is going to get hurt. These two sides of personality are typically balanced when we interact with other people, but they tend to take charge when it comes to marriage. These sides of the personality are often at war with one another, and couples need to be mindful of this. When it comes to motivation, Dr. Harley states that there are three states of mind that greatly influence the marriage relationship. These are the state of intimacy, the state of conflict, and the state of withdrawal. When a couple is in love, they are typically in the state of intimacy, which is controlled by the giver that I just mentioned a second ago. When feelings of unhappiness begin to creep into a marriage, the taker is activated, which then triggers the state of conflict. Spouses are then motivated to do whatever will make them the happiest. Basically, the taker causes the couples to fight with one another. When fighting doesn't work, the taker then approaches another tactic and triggers the state of withdrawal. In the state of withdrawal, a person wants to give up on their spouse altogether. Ultimately, psychopathology occurs when a couple's emotional needs are not met, which results in falling out of love. Dr. Harley's main goal of counseling is to restore the love that has been broken in marriages. At the core of Dr. Harley's methodology are 10 basic concepts. I have already discussed some of these concepts earlier in this presentation, so I'll only highlight the ones that we have not gone over yet. The ultimate goal of these concepts is to restore lost love in couples and also help them stay in love for the rest of their lives. The first basic concept is the love bank. I have already gone into some detail about this concept earlier, but it is important to note that the remaining 9 concepts are related to this one. Basic concept number 2 is instincts and habits, which I have also already discussed earlier when we discussed Dr. Harley's basic view of human nature. These are important to keep in mind because they greatly affect the love bank and whether or not it is above the romantic love threshold. Basic concept number 3 is called the most important emotional needs. This concept is really at the heart of Dr. Harley's approach to counseling. After interviewing hundreds of couples, he realized that the quickest way to make deposits into the love bank is to meet your spouse's most important emotional needs. He has created an emotional needs questionnaire to determine what each individual person's specific needs are. Although each person is unique, Dr. Harley has created a list of the 10 most common emotional needs. 5 of these needs are most common for women, and the other 5 are most common for men. These are the top 5 emotional needs for men. Number 1 is sexual fulfillment. Dr. Harley says this is the first thing that men cannot do without. Number 2 is recreational companionship. Dr. Harley states that the man needs her to be his playmate. Number 3 is an attractive spouse. Dr. Harley states that the man needs to have a good-looking spouse. Number 4 is domestic support. Dr. Harley states that the man needs peace and quiet. And number 5 is admiration. Dr. Harley states that the man needs his wife to be proud of him. Now let's move on to her needs. These are the top 5 emotional needs for women. Number 1 is affection. Dr. Harley states that this is the first thing that a woman can't do without. Number 2 is conversation. Dr. Harley says that the woman needs the man to talk to her. Number 3 is honesty and openness. Dr. Harley states that the woman needs to trust the man completely. Number 4 is financial support. Dr. Harley says that the woman needs enough money to live comfortably. And lastly, number 5 is family commitment. Dr. Harley says that the woman needs the man to be a good father. If you are interested in taking Dr. Harley's emotional needs questionnaire, you can find it on his website, which I have put at the end of your handout. Basic concept number 4 is the policy of undivided attention. This policy states, give your spouse your undivided attention, a minimum of 15 hours each week, using the time to meet the emotional needs of affection, conversation, recreational companionship, and sexual fulfillment. Spouses must schedule this time with one another or their needs will not be met. Basic concept number 5 is what is known as love busters. These are natural human traits that destroy the feeling of love. These can include things such as anger and dishonesty. Couples need to eliminate these love busters as much as possible from their marriage. Basic concept number 6 is the policy of radical honesty. This concept states, reveal to your spouse as much information about yourself as you know, your thoughts, feelings, habits, likes, dislikes, personal history, daily activities, and plans for the future. Dr. Harley says that honesty is crucial in marriage because it brings couples together and protects them from destructive secrets. Basic concept number 7 is the policy of joint agreement. This policy states, never do anything without an enthusiastic agreement between you and your spouse. If couples abide by this policy, they will consult with one another to ensure they are not causing the other spouse unhappiness. Basic concept number 8 is 4 guidelines to successful negotiations. Guideline number 1 says to set ground rules in order to make negotiations safe and pleasant. Guideline number 2 involves identifying the problem from both perspectives. The third guideline involves brainstorming with abandon, and the final guideline involves mutual and enthusiastic agreement. Basic concept number 9 is the giver and the taker, which I previously discussed when I talked about Dr. Harley's view of personality, so I won't go into any more detail on this basic concept. And finally, the 10th basic concept is the 3 states of mind in marriage, which I have also previously discussed when I talked about human motivation earlier. So these are the 10 basic concepts that make up Dr. Harley's methodology. He believes if couples can follow these, they can restore the feeling of love, which will ultimately save their marriage. Dr. Harley's role is to walk alongside these couples and help them understand what their basic emotional needs are and help them meet their needs in their marriage. The couple just needs to be willing to give it a try and to work on meeting the emotional needs of their spouse. Lastly, I'd like to move on to a critique of Dr. Harley's approach to counseling. Overall, I believe his approach to counseling has some strengths. His theory is extremely practical and has clear goals. Counselees may find this helpful because they can start working towards certain goals from the very beginning of counseling. Progress can easily be measured by looking at each spouse's love bank and whether or not it is being filled by the other person. Also, I do believe that Dr. Harley's theory does line up with Scripture in certain ways. He emphasizes putting others' needs before your own, and this principle can be found in Scripture and can be seen lived out in the life of Jesus. Despite these strengths, there are some glaring weaknesses that can't be ignored when dealing with his theory. The first big weakness that jumps out to me is the fact that Harley never mentions God or the Bible in his theory. And to be honest, when I first started this presentation, I got a little confused because I thought that Dr. Harley was a Christian theorist. I know I see his books sold in Lifeway and other Christian bookstores, but never once did I see him mention God or the Bible. And also, Harley seems to find his source of truth in people rather than from the ultimate source of truth, that is God and His Word. Although some of Harley's concepts allude to biblical principles, it is difficult to know if this was done so purposefully, with the Bible in mind, or if it was just a coincidence. Also, Dr. Harley never mentions the problem of sin or the fact that the heart plays a role. And human beings, they're broken and live in a fallen world, which impacts marriage greatly, and this is never mentioned in Dr. Harley's approach to counseling. Lastly, Dr. Harley puts a lot of emphasis on emotional needs being met by a person's spouse. The problem with this is that God is the ultimate one who we should look to for our needs, not our spouse or another human. We should not look to our spouse for happiness, but instead should find joy in the Lord. This concludes my presentation on Dr. Harley. I hope you found this helpful, and if you would like more information on Dr. Harley and his approach to counseling, please visit his website, www.marriagebuilders.com. He has a ton of great information on all aspects of marriage. Thank you.